another edition of the Checkerboard Chat. We're here today post Tennessee's big win over South Carolina this weekend, 41-21. I'm your host, Ryan Schumpert, joined as always by Noah Taylor, as we'll discuss the Vols' win, preview their homecoming matchup this weekend, and take a little bit of a look into Tennessee basketball as they start to get things going here this week. But to start off, Noah, what are your initial thoughts on Tennessee's big win from Saturday?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, I don't think you can overstate how big it was for the program. Not just because now the outlook for a bowl game looks more positive, but I mean, just from a morale standpoint, I thought that a few weeks ago, Mississippi State was kind of that win. Not that Mississippi State's very good, but I mean, it was one they needed to win, and they did. We expected them to lose to Alabama. They played a lot better than we expected. And then I remember saying last time we were on was like, you can't let Alabama beat you twice. That was a really emotional loss to them. So It was controversial as well. So coming out and showing that wasn't bothering them, to give up the 75-yard touchdown on the first play and to recover and just completely run away with it against, I think, not a terrible South Carolina team. It was huge for them. And I think offense, defense, special teams, it was a complete effort. And I think that the team carried each other, and that's something. If they keep doing that, they're going to win the next four.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head with the just complete effort part of it. And obviously, I know South Carolina was just 3-4 going into the game. Record might be a little bit better than that, or they may be a little bit better than the record indicates. And obviously, Tennessee got some top 25 wins last year over Auburn, over Kentucky. But I thought Saturday was the best performance overall of the Jeremy Pruitt era. Offense, defense, special teams, all three played really well. Not to say there was anything fluky about those Kentucky or Auburn games, because there wasn't. But Auburn game, Tennessee got a lot of jump balls, forced 3 turnovers, had a lot of things go right. In this game, Tennessee just thoroughly beat South Carolina, really not from the first snaps. Obviously, I went for a touchdown to South Carolina, but they played really well in the first half. After that, they were down, 4 points at halftime, and then second half just really played flawlessly. I think a lot of stories from the game, but one of them's got to be the oddness of the quarterback situation, how that was handled. What were kind of your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we talked about it yesterday, but when Juwan Jennings went out there and took the first snap, I did not have a very positive feeling about where that game was going to go. I kind of thought, well, they don't have any trust in Stroud to go out there and do. I know Stroud played a little bit against Alabama after Garantano's, mishap there at the goal line, but all they did was hand the ball off. So I thought, well, I mean, they obviously just don't have trust in these two guys. I mean, the whole Jennings thing, I think people have been calling for, fans have been calling for on Twitter for months now.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't let him play significant time at quarterback. But, I thought, well, you can't do this the whole game and succeed. And then Garantano came up, a little shaky at first. But, I mean, I think that was the system was ran great. I think that, switching in quarterbacks can sometimes be a tricky thing to do. And it throws off consistency. But both were consistent when they came in. Neither turned the ball over, made big throws, got the ball to Tennessee's playmakers, which has been, one of the best receiving corps in the SEC, with guys like Callaway and Jennings. And I think Tennessee hasn't been able to get them the ball. They got the ball to them Saturday, and we saw what could happen when they do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the consistency, and, usually when you're moving quarterbacks in, it's hard for them to get in the flow and play with consistency, right, just from whenever they jump in. But that's really kind of what happened Saturday. I mean, JT Stroud played some in the first half, got his toes a little wet. Wasn't great, wasn't awful, did some good things, and then, Garantano goes out after throwing that go-ahead touchdown, and it's got to be Stroud. You're like, Stroud's got to make some plays for him down the stretch if they're going to win, and that's exactly what he did. He wasn't perfect, but he was as good as I think anyone could have expected. Like you said, a long pass to Callaway, another long pass to Jennings to set up a field goal. So he did about as well as I think you can expect from a guy that was in no way expected to play meaningful snaps for Tennessee this season. And then I think Garantano, I mean, it says a lot about him, I guess, as a person, just the way he's been able to respond from really this whole season. He had some dry humor there in the post-game press conference about how easy everything's been on him the past few weeks. But, nevertheless, impressive. I don't think anyone's going to remember him for his performance Saturday when they look back at his career 5 years later, but it's definitely what he was able to do Saturday, able to do against Mississippi State, something that should be remembered, especially for a senior. And transitioning into that, it was the seniors' day at Neyland Stadium. Daniel Batuli, Darrell Taylor, Marquez Callaway, Jawan Jennings, all of those guys having huge games. Just how much did that really, do you think, mean to Tennessee?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mentioned that in my grades today. I said that on offense, if Callaway and mostly Jennings have had their moments this year, right? You know, they've had those big games with Jennings outside of Florida where, you know, the ball went through his hands and he just kind of played off. He's been, you know, the go-to guy. Callaway, we've kind of been waiting for him to have that, and both of them had that type of game on Saturday. I think that was huge for their offense. And I said, you know, if they keep that up, you know, that this offense is going to be pretty good down the stretch. Same with the defense. You have guys like Taylor and Batuli playing well, along with Toto, who's played well all season, played consistent. Those two guys playing the way they did that level, I mean, that was big for Tennessee. And there's just, I think there's no way they win. I mean, I guess that kind of goes without saying, considering all the impact they made. But I don't know if those 2 or 4 players don't mesh on the side of the ball like they did Saturday. I don't know if Tennessee wins that game. It was just a great effort on both sides by senior leadership that they really needed.
Definitely, and you know, this isn't to say that those guys hadn't been good or contributed a lot in their past, you know, last season or earlier this season, but everyone kind of kept on looking, I feel like, for the young players to step up, young players to make big plays and carve out a bigger role. And not to, you know, some of them have done that, but it's been the seniors, it's been, you know, not even just the seniors, but it's been the Butch Jones recruits that I think have been such an X factor. I think a lot of people just gave up on a lot of those players, and you know, myself included at times, but Pruitt's staff has done a good job of developing those guys, and whether that's Kevon Bennett, who is going to play a lot of significant snaps in his last few years at Tennessee, he's playing a lot better. Some of those guys have just really, really developed here, really over the last few weeks. I think you look at the offense and the receivers, I think that's what people thought Tennessee might have before the year, and as an explosive offense. This was the second game this season that they've had 2 receivers with over 100 yards. You know, Callaway's a little big play dependent in his ability to do that for you, but Jennings has been a guy that is carving out 80, 100-yard games basically every week. And now that they're getting a little bit of consistency in the quarterback position, not necessarily with who's playing, but overall performance, that has really gone a long way and has proven to be an effective offense when they get good performance at the quarterback position. So now, after that game, Tennessee's sitting here 3-5. Have 4 left. UAB Saturday, traveled to Lexington the following week. Bye week, traveled to Missouri, Vanderbilt at home. Need 3 of them to make a bowl. What would you put the percentage at? What would you put Duvall's chances of making the bowl here as we sit in late October?
I'd say very good. I mean, and that's going back to the win, how big it was for big for Tennessee to beat South Carolina. If you beat South Carolina, you can afford to lose one more. I mean, obviously, Jeremy Pruitt and staff are not shooting to lose one more, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure Saturday they thought, okay, good, now we can lose to Missouri and be okay. But so it gives you a little bit of breathing room there. But, I mean, the way they played and the way we've seen, Missouri was one that I had circled as their biggest game left. I mean, or their hardest game
Most
left.
challenging.
Most challenging for sure. You're out there. It's going to be cold, I'm sure. Maybe nighttime, so it might be a pretty tough environment. But we've seen Missouri the last couple of weeks. Their offense is just really bad. I mean, it's been tough to watch, which is saying something. Considering we talked about Drew Lock the other night. I mean, it's been quite a fall these last few games. Haven't watched a ton of Missouri football, so other than the other night, saw a good bit of that game. So I can't say whether or not what their problems are. If it's Kelly Bryant, if it's just he's getting injured and can't stay consistent. I think these next 4 are Tennessee are very winnable for Tennessee. I'd say outside of Missouri, they're probably gonna be favored in all of them.
Yeah.
UAB is kind of an interesting matchup, I think. Yeah, that's a pretty good team out of Conference USA. I think they're 6-1 right now.
Yeah.
They were a team that was in the top 25 last year around this time. And then we talked earlier about the familiarity with Bill Clark and Jeremy Pruitt. I'm interested to see how that game goes. Another night game, so the environment will be interesting. I think a better team than, you know, with this 4-game stretch, I hate to say like UAB's not the best team in it. They're probably one of the better ones in there, really, when you look at Vanderbilt's done and Kentucky lately. But I'd say the very good shot to not only make a bowl game, but because all they need is 3. But I'd say they could win all 4 for sure. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. I think when you look at it, it's the consistency factor in that. We've seen Tennessee play 2 road games. They played pretty good in Tuscaloosa. Played probably not worse than Georgia State. Probably their second worst game of the year in Gainesville.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen Kentucky's look better at home. Missouri's look better at home. Both those games on the road for Tennessee. So I think it's going to be hard. Definitely possible for Tennessee to run the table, win 4. But I think having the little bit of having that win, being able to lose one, it's going to be tough. I mean, you're building your program, still a young team to be consistent week in and week out. And then the game Saturday, I think, is an interesting matchup. Tennessee currently 10-point favorites in that game. I think they opened up a little bit higher than that. It's been bet down a little bit already. UAB 6-1 on the season. 6-1 on the season. But you look at teams they've beaten. The records on those teams are 3-4, 0-8, 1-7, 0-8, 3-4, and 1-7. They lost to a 5-3 Western Kentucky team. Not to say that UAB isn't a good team, because I think they definitely are, and the job Bill Clark has done there revitalizing that UAB program after it being non-existent for a few years has truly been remarkable and one of the more impressive coaching jobs in all of college football. But I don't think they're necessarily as good as the record makes them look. But at the same time, this is a Tennessee team that lost to Georgia State a few months ago, and if they don't come out and they don't play well, it's a game that is definitely losable. Yeah. I'm not sure they're as ripe for an upset as maybe some people would look on the outside. But it's definitely going to be a big game in a game that Tennessee will have to play well in to win.
Yeah, and when you talked about the consistency factor, I mean, that is something to take into account for sure, because as good as Tennessee, I think, has played these last 3 weeks, and Saturday was the best of any of the 3 wins they've had this year. Let's throw Chattanooga out the window, you know. But of the 2 SEC wins they've had this year, Saturday was by far the best they played. Didn't play perfect against Mississippi State, found a way to win though. Played pretty good football against Alabama. I mean, good enough to hang in there with them and make it almost make it a 1-possession game. But they can't. I mean, the team still isn't good enough to, like you said, take a step back these next 4 weeks. They can't. I don't want to say that they have to have games like they did Saturday, because that's might be asking a bit too much to have Darrell Taylor get 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups. Get Batuli to block punts, make 15 tackles, things like that. That might be too much to expect, but they definitely don't have that room for error to, go into it and say, well, we might not play our best today. Because, as winnable as I think those games are, they're really losable, too, for this Tennessee team. So, I definitely agree with the consistency thing.
Definitely, and so I guess keeping it on the UAB and going forward, moving back to the quarterbacks, Garantano, like I said, gets knocked out in that game. Brian Maurer's status still questionable. Pruitt said they thought he'd be out there at practice on Monday. How would you expect Tennessee to handle it going forward? It's kind of just a big question. I don't think there's really any clear answer, but what do you think? What would you expect to see Tennessee do this weekend and maybe going forward?
After the first snap on Saturday, maybe they give Jennings a little bit more time at quarterback this week. I don't know. Shrout played well. I mean, he played well enough now to where you have more confidence in him to go out there and play a whole game if he has to. That being said, the status on Maurer is unclear right now, and then the status on Garantano is unclear. He just had a procedure done yesterday, right, on his wrist. So maybe you don't want to trot them out there, but what if something happens to Shrout? Then you're kind of in a weird spot. So I'd say they're going to be confident enough to start him and let him play until they're forced not to. Either way, either if he's hurt, God forbid, or just doesn't play well. But I'd say they're going to go with him and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, just to go ahead and clarify for those listening, the Garantano injury broke his left bone in his left wrist, non-throwing wrist. Pruitt said they expect him to be ready on Saturday. I don't know how much that's just coach speak. He also said he did not expect him to practice today on Monday. That's when we're recording this. So that'll be an interesting one to see. It seemed to be some optimism on whether Maurer could play this week. Again, I don't think that's a situation you'd really be looking to rush him back in. As serious as concussions and CTE are.
Right.
in a game that seems as, we said they can't just roll in and win,
Yeah.
but a game that seems as winnable on paper. You feel like, I'm sure Tennessee feels like they can win this game with whoever a quarterback. But it's going to be interesting to watch, see how Tennessee handles. I'm sure it'll kind of be in how they handle the Malware part of it will certainly be in the spotlight with the health issues there. So that'll be enough for UT football today. We'll pivot it over to basketball, where the Vols will get their regular season started next week. But this week, Wednesday, they have an exhibition game against Eastern New Mexico?
Yeah, I think so.
Directional New Mexico school. Wednesday night, the day before Halloween. No, what are you looking to see? What are you be interested to watch for the Vols on Wednesday?
Just the younger guys getting a chance to play, like Josiah James. Obviously, a lot of hype surrounding him. He should play, right?
Yeah, I think he was coming back to practice later last week.
Okay, good. And then, I don't know if you rush him out there or not. Obviously, not to repeat of what we said the week of the Georgia State game. This is one Tennessee should win and get a chance to see the younger guys play, because you're going to get a little bit of look at the future. I think that's the biggest thing for Tennessee right now. I'm not saying don't go out there and try this year. I still think this is a tournament team that could have a very good season. Don't think they'll replicate what they did last year, obviously. But you get some young guys out there and get them some experience in these early games. Tough non-conference slate this year. As much playing time as they can get will be interesting to see. Because we know what we're going to get at guys like Lamonte Turner and Jordan Bowden. They'll go out there and probably play a little bit, and then you throw in your young guys, see how they perform. And because that recruiting class, which I know you're going to talk about here in a second, as big as it's going to be, and we've talked about it before. That those three guys matched with the guys you already got on your roster. I think Tennessee could be in for a really great season next year. Not to look too far ahead, but that's probably what I'll be looking forward to the most tomorrow night or Wednesday night.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one thing that's going to be interesting to really follow all year is you just look at Tennessee's backcourt depth. Mm-hmm. They have Bowden, they have Turner, who obviously they feel good about, senior guys. They have Josiah James, who they feel confident about and they feel good in, but he's a guy that's missed a lot of time, just a freshman, missed a lot of practice. It's hard to imagine he's going to come in and play at a super, super high level, at least early in the season. And then they have Jalen Johnson as a guard to come off the bench. And then after that, I think it's a lot of questions. I think from what it sounds like is that Barnes and staff were very impressed with what they got from Devontae Gaines this summer, who was lowest rated recruit that they brought in. But he's a guy that's been dealing with an injury as well. I think he's not sure he's come back to practice yet. I think they expect him back here pretty soon. So the depth in that backcourt, I think, is going to be interesting. If he's available to play, Gaines is, and I'm sure they'll do it with James, I would expect to see them play a lot of minutes to kind of try to rapidly get those guys ready with the season coming on. And I don't want to discount Pons as a guy that can play on the perimeter, but I think they feel more confident about him down low. The other thing I'm going to be looking for on Wednesday is just how they use Plasic. Still, the Arizona State transfer still has not had his waiver approved. There's been a bunch of waivers approved or denied in the past week from the NCAA, but still no word on him. Yeah. If that's the case, like I said, we're recording this Monday. If that's still the case Wednesday, I'm curious how much they play him in the next exhibition game if they're not sure they're going to have him eligible. But he's certainly a guy that I'm sure fans will be having their eyes glued on too, because one is expected to contribute a lot if he can get eligible this season.
Would be huge if
Definitely.
they can get that addition there. But I agree with you. That's another one that kind of want to keep an eye on how he performs. And like you said, if there's no word by Wednesday, do you throw him out there and risk anything? I'd say it's very minimal that something like that happens, but get him some playing time at least before the season starts, and you find out. I guess that's just a Tennessee thing with the.
I guess so. Yeah, when it goes so late.
If it goes the way it goes, then maybe we'll find out by week 2 or 3 into the regular season.
So that will be enough of the basketball. We'll close with a few recruiting nuggets of both football and basketball. Last week in football, 3 commitments from a trio of players at Whitehaven High School out in Memphis, Tennessee. Big gets for the staff. Bryson Easton had been a priority guy for a long time. They decided to go all in on his teammates and flipped some commitments from Arkansas and Mississippi State. Definitely good gets for Pruitt. Definitely built some momentum, I guess, that you saw carry on into the weekend on the field. On the other side of it, some bad news in recruiting. Yesterday, kind of everyone had their eyes on last week, Marietta High School, where Tennessee had 2 commitments, one from quarterback Harrison Bailey, one from B.J. Ojolari. Their other teammate who had been considering Tennessee kind of shocked, his top 10 recruit, Eric Gilbert, kind of shocked the college football world. I think most people thought he was going to go to Georgia, Alabama. He chooses to go play at LSU. Half a week later, his good friend B.J. Ojolari, teammate, Tennessee commit, flips his commitment from Tennessee to LSU. So certainly a big loss for Tennessee. Ojolari was a top 150 recruit, outside linebacker, a real position of need in this recruiting class for Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see what the Vols do there, where they turn, how their board adjusted outside linebacker. Maybe they go a little harder in for Reggie Grimes, the in-state athlete from Ravenwood High School, or maybe they go to JUCO route, try to find somebody there. And then in the basketball recruiting world, big get last week is Jaden Springer, number 15 player in the country, commits to Tennessee over Memphis and Michigan. He's a Charlotte native originally, plays at IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. So that was a great get for Barnes & Co. That class now up to number 4 in the country with a pair of 5 stars and a 4-star forward. They are out of scholarship spots. They had 3 scholarship spots. Would expect them probably to oversign here in the fall just due to the nature of attrition and college basketball. I think they've had a player leave every single year Barnes has been there. And then you add the fact that Josiah James could possibly be one and done. I think Tennessee would like to get a post player in that spot. P.J. Hall, a guy they'd been after, committed to Clemson last week, so it won't be him. Dylan Cardwell, maybe a guy to watch there, the 6'11" center from Georgia. He's taken an official visit to Tennessee. Believe he either had his visit last weekend or this coming weekend at UConn, which will be his last one. So that'll certainly be something to watch going forward. But thank you for joining us on this edition of the Checkerboard Chat. We will be back next week talking probably a little bit about Tennessee's exhibition game against Eastern New Mexico, talking about them opening the season up, and then we will talk about the homecoming matchup against UAB for the football team. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.